There are days in a baseball offseason when the transaction wire feels like background noise, signings that barely register, moves that arrive and dissolve into the ether before you've even finished your tea. And then there are days, like today, where you look up from your desk and suddenly the Toronto Blue Jays have made multiple roster moves, an injured outfielder is opening emotional wounds in public, and your new Japanese import is being described, by his own manager no less, as manly. Welcome, folks. You are exactly where you need to be. Here at the Blue Jays Report, we don't do filler. We don't skim. And today, we have genuine substance to get through, so let's not waste a single second of it. Let's begin where the news broke, because this one came through fast. The Blue Jays have officially claimed infielder Ben Cowles off waivers from the Chicago Cubs. And simultaneously, right-handed pitcher Ben Francis has been placed on the 60-day injured list. Two moves, announced almost back-to-back, that tell a fairly clear story about where this organization finds itself as the regular season draws closer. One door closes, another opens, though perhaps not quite the door some fans were hoping for. Now, I'll be transparent with you here, because that's what the Blue Jays Report is built on. Ben Cowles is not going to set Rogers Center alight. His offensive numbers at AAA last season, a slash line of .235, 300, 371 with a WRC plus of 71, are, to put it diplomatically, below the standard we'd like to see. 71 WRC plus means he is hitting roughly 29 points beneath league average at the minor league level. That is not a number that traditionally has scouts reaching for the phone in breathless excitement. I'll be upfront about that. But, and here is where nuance matters, and where I'd ask you to stay with me a moment, Ben Cowles isn't here to carry the offense. He was the Cubs' 14th ranked prospect per Baseball America as recently as 2025, which tells you there is a foundation of genuine ability beneath those pedestrian stat lines. He swiped 18 bases in 26 attempts last year, which in the era of the bigger bags is a genuinely useful trait. More importantly, he is described by those who've watched him closely as a versatile glove-first infielder. And if you know anything about John Schneider's philosophy, you know that phrase is practically a love language in this front office. Schneider has always valued defenders who can slide across the diamond without breaking a sweat. Miles Shaw types, David Schneider types, players who give the manager flexibility, who allow the lineup to breathe. Ben Cowles fits that mold. Is it the most exciting move the Jays could have made? No, and I won't pretend otherwise. You could make a reasonable argument that with Ben Francis now shelved for months, the organization might have stretched a little further, dug a little deeper into the trade market for something with more immediate punch. That conversation is still alive. Trades remain firmly on the horizon, but for now, Cowles fills a genuine gap in what was becoming a concerningly thin infield reserve. And at 25 years old, with legitimate speed and a defensive profile that scouts genuinely respect, there is something worth watching here, especially if spring training offers him a stage. If this interests you, and it should, hit that subscribe button and come back with us for every update as camp unfolds. Now, Anthony Santander, because this is where today's news stops being about roster logistics and becomes something altogether more human. Santander spoke publicly about his shoulder surgery and the road that led him there, and his words carried a particular weight. He said, and I want you to hear this carefully, that things happen that are not in your control, and that some people think differently, but that he knows who he is and that he is trying his best to be on the field with his teammates. There is a quiet anguish in that phrasing. A man who doesn't need to justify himself, but does so anyway, because he feels the weight of expectation pressing down on every syllable. And the expectation was enormous. Santander was supposed to be this team's redemption arc, after a 2025 that went sideways far too early, after being rushed back. After that playoff appearance that produced more heartbreak than heroism, this season was meant to be the year he reminded everyone what a fully healthy Anthony Santander actually looks like. Instead, mid-season MRIs last year failed to identify the full extent of the labrum damage. The Blue Jays and Santander himself chose the rehab route, a reasonable decision with the information they had. But when he ramped up hitting this winter, the discomfort returned, and fresh imaging told a far grimmer story. A torn labrum, the kind of injury that doesn't negotiate. Here's what makes this particularly difficult to sit with. Santander himself has gently opened the door to the possibility of missing the entire 2026 season. He said he hopes the Blue Jays are winning, which would give him time to build strength properly, to do things right rather than rushing again. And between the lines of that, if you listen carefully, there's a man who has been rushed before and carries the damage to prove it. He is not wrong to say what he's saying, but for a Blue Jays fan base that signed off on that contract, $92 million with options, hearing those words still lands like a stone in still water. His contract, it has to be said, has aged with a speed that few of us anticipated, and whether that speaks to bad fortune, organizational mismanagement of his recovery timeline, or simply the brutal randomness of professional sport, that debate is worth having. Let me know down below where you stand, because I suspect opinions are running hot on this one. Do you hold the front office accountable? Do you hold anyone accountable? Or is this simply baseball doing what baseball has always done, reminding us that control is mostly an illusion? Whatever your answer, the practical consequence for 2026 is stark. Where Santander was projected to anchor left field and provide the kind of power that opposing pitchers genuinely fear, the Jays now look to Jesus Sanchez, Nathan Lucas, Miles Shaw, and the headline addition of this entire offseason, Dylan Cease, anchoring a rotation that needs him badly. George Springer holds the outfield together at the top. The left field projection for Santander now sits at a sobering 2% of playing time. 2%. That number alone tells you everything you need to know about where things currently stand. And yet, because baseball never lets you wallow for too long, there is something genuinely exciting happening on another front. John Schneider has been watching Kazuma Okamoto in training, and the manager's assessment was, to put it mildly, characterful. Schneider called Okamoto's work very serious, and he offered with a knowing grin, somewhat manly, a nod to Okamoto's own self-description that has apparently already become something of an inside joke around the facility. I'll be honest, I find that absolutely delightful. There is something refreshing about a player who arrives in a new country, in a new league, and simply radiates a kind of unshakable self-assurance. Okamoto pulls the ball with power. He's been tracked closely by the media already, and early reports suggest he is settling in with the natural ease of someone who simply belongs at this level. Can he replace Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s production one for one? Almost certainly not. Few players in baseball can. But if the pieces around him find their level, if Cease delivers the innings this rotation desperately needs, if Cowles turns out to be more than the sum of his AAA numbers, then there is still a compelling story to be told about this 2026 Toronto Blue Jays side. And that's precisely why we're here, folks. That's precisely why the Blue Jays Report exists, to sit with the complexity, to resist the easy takes, and to make sure that when this season unfolds, you are not just watching it, but understanding it. Share this video if it added something to your day. There is more coming very soon, including a deeper look at how Dylan Cease fits into everything we've discussed today. And trust me, that conversation is one you will not want to miss.